Hello and welcome to episode 275 of the Washed Up Emo podcast. I am Tom Mullen from washedupemo.com. Today in the podcast, we welcome Rob Pettersen from Portraits of Past. We talk about their return to playing live, a split 7-inch with Saetia on Solid Brass Records, where they cover Rites of Spring, and talk about some new music that they have in the works. Portraits of Past are a legendary band from the ebullition era of emo and hardcore from the 90s, and we hope that you enjoy. We get in, of course, to the topic of genres, including emo, screamo, post-hardcore, and even Midwest emo, whatever the hell that is. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks for the support via Patreon. If you want to support the podcast, go to patreon.com/washedupemo. All right, this is episode 275 of the Washed Up Emo podcast with the vocalist for Portraits of Past, Rob Pettersen.
Hello.
What's up, Rob?
Not much. How are you doing?
Good, man. A little 917 to a 347.
Yeah, AT&T just informed me that 347 is going away, or they're doing something to that out in New York. I don't know.
They're adding another area code.
Yeah. It was traumatic for me, where we grew up on the coast side in south of San Francisco. We grew up with 415 area codes, and then one time, they just decided to switch everyone in that county to 650, so that SF could have all the 415s.
Wow.
But I guess they don't do that switcheroo anymore. They just add more. So
crazy. Well, hopefully we'll keep our New York numbers and people on their toes when we call.
Yeah. I mean, I've done the generic hipster migration from San Francisco to Brooklyn and now Los Feliz. So there's I know many other people who have done the same exact thing, and lots of LA folks, LA transplants with 347 numbers. So it's cool.
So thanks for doing this. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, excited for that. Maybe we're coming back a bit too soon, but should be fun.
Why do you say that?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I overthink all the business stuff, and I don't know. Aren't bands only supposed to play once every 2 years or something? I don't know how it works, but at this point, Portraits is a going concern, and we like it, and we're excited that Zebulon agreed to do all ages for us, because I love that venue. But for this band, we got to get the kids in and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, what is that? Is that been interesting? Hearing from younger fans, and not just people like me.
Absolutely, and really, it was a differentiator for me personally, and why I kind of agreed to do this when Alex and Christian reached out about your Renaissance 18 months ago or whenever that was. Like, we did reunions in 2008, 2009, and it was rad. I mean, we wrote some new songs, put out an EP. The shows we did were great. We got to go to Japan and stuff. But I mean, a lot of old heads came out, and we were all younger at that time. But yeah, for me personally, this music is supposed to be vibrant and youthful, and that's where we were at that time in 94, 95. And I think some of that vitality comes out in our music, and for us to reunite again now that I'm fucking 50 years old, like the fact that young people care was a big plus for me. Like I love lots of other kinds of music, like doomy stuff and stoner rock and whatever, and reunions and those older bands, those crowds are just a different vibe. It's you're in my age group, right?
Yep.
But the fact that younger folks find something in our music, continue to, just made it crucial for me to like start the band up and do it right, put a lot of care and love and time into it. So yeah, it's super inspiring. I mean, some of the shows that we played are so diverse in all the ways of diversity, age and age and gender and style, for lack of a better term. And it's something also that I really I have having dipped back into the hardcore emo whatever scene in the last couple of years. Like the, it's so vibrant and seems so much more expansive, at least compared to my jaded remembrances of the mid '90s, where it's at least where I was from, it seemed very one thing. It didn't seem
Talk
very
about that
diverse.
more. So what? Because this is a theme with a lot of people that I've spoken to. That, like you said, this reason is not just to have Toms show up; it's to have people. And so, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What have they said that either they found it and why, and then also what are you seeing? Like you said, you dipped your toe back in to kind of watch.
Yeah, well, on that second point, when Alex and Christian hit me up, or really Alex Bigman said, "Hey, now, he's been, he was at our shows in '08 or '09. He's from the Bay Area, but lives here. He's at a band called Fight Fair. He's kind of been DMing us for 15 years about reunions and when you're going to play again. And he lives nearby to me here in LA, and is like, now's the time to do it. The kids care. Certain bands are big on TikTok, whatever. Like because the story he's told me and other folks have said is that younger kids, teens and stuff kind of found some of this '90s music and this style during the pandemic and, shut at home, and maybe the themes or the sound of the music spoke to them, or putting on DIY shows in their garage when there's a curfew or whatever started happening. And so, yeah, I mean, he told me, now's the time. This festival, Your Renaissance, is going to be great. A lot of different older and newer bands playing. And since I live here in LA, I've gone many years of my life without checking out new music. Probably went a solid 10 years without listening to a single new record of any type, of any genre. And I think going through some of that post-COVID analysis of my life and the world and my community, when they hit me up, I was like, I should find out what's going on in LA, right? What are the venues? What are some of the local bands doing? And seeing kind of what, I'm an overthinker, and, what portraits means to me or in the greater world is something that I not struggle with, but think about. And what is the context, right? The, the '90s hardcore, post-hardcore emo context was very specific, especially in the Bay Area. And what does it mean to play this music? And specifically these songs that I wrote when I was 19, what does it even mean to play that again? And why? So yeah, I checked out some local bands, went to Zebulon, went to Non Plus Ultra, went to some house shows, went to some DIY spots in East LA, and saw what was going on. And, just saw a lot of younger folks playing music that sort of sounded like '90s music, but not entirely, mixing lots of genres, right?
Mm-hmm.
So something that I get a kick out of is, in 2026, we talk about screamo and emo and Midwest emo, right? Which is something I listened to a little bit back in the day, but Midwest emo, that I don't remember that being a genre term. But hearing these bands that will mix quote unquote screamo and then Midwest emo riffs into not just the same set, but the same song was really mind blowing to me, because those bands would maybe play together back in the day, but the same band wouldn't have those sonic characteristics, right? But I just got stoked on the youthful enthusiasm of people playing music and throwing little underground shows. And yeah, so again, I'm an overthinker, and I kind of, it wasn't just, we're just going to do some club dates or some festival dates. I wanted to kind of see what was going on in I guess in the music scene, right? So
Yeah, I love that. I mean, being able to connect with where you are and kind of see that and experience it. I just anyway, it's been a similar feeling of there's not just the same people showing up. There's different people. There's younger people. They're explaining how they found it, And that's really exciting because a lot of these things, and we can get into the reissue party, which seems to be a little overblown. Like it's just kind
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
there's a lot of fucking things going on right now. And it's like,
Yes.
and where your place is in that, I feel like a lot of things getting, a lot of bands are getting this like rose colored glasses a little bit. And it's like, I don't know, it just seems like everything is this long lost gem. Like,
Yep.
okay, well, you found the masters and you put it up, and this band had this moment in time, and that's okay too. And it's
Yes.
okay that you want to aspire to kind of, I just don't want this like rewritten history of like, no, a kid can find it and it will resonate. And that's probably my apex, right? Like a
Yeah.
kid
Yeah.
can find it. And so I love that you're getting inspiration and feeling from this, and it's not just like, well, it just happens to be the 0 or 5 year, so why don't we do it? And I'm not saying that's
Yeah.
the only reason, but there's this deeper feeling around it for you.
Yeah. And it's partially because, I'm not a musician. I don't do this for any
Mm-hmm.
other band besides Porch of Past. I haven't been in 4 other bands since then, or 7 other bands or whatever. Um, and so it was a big commitment for me to decide to do it. I had to figure out if I could even yell like I used to, and even make it through a set.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, as nerdy as it sounds, I did a lot of training. I did over 50 solo rehearsals before we played that show with Saetia at Lodge Room, like to be sure that I could, um, sort of perform to the level that I wanted and what people expect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, and just to not shame my band members, all of whom are really good musicians and really solid. And, I do not have an additional 30 years of vocals since 95. And my bandmates have been playing guitar and drums and bass all along the time. And, uh, you know, in some ways I think probably objectively Portrait sounds better now than we did in 95 because of all that experience and practice and inherent talent some of the guys have, but I really don't, or didn't think I did. And so for me, it was like a big time commitment. Like, do I want to rehearse 50 times before this show and design flyers and order t-shirts and all the other stuff that has to go into, again, I'm an overthinker and I like to plot all this stuff out to make it seem doable. But yeah, it all felt good as soon as we started rehearsing together. And again, just, I'm thankful to listeners and fans from back in the day, and as well as the young people like encouraging us, like the beautiful messages we get in DMs on Instagram and all this stuff. It means a lot. And again, maybe I'm not a lifer, right, per se, as some musicians are. Like, the fact that people say these things about the music, what it meant to them, that they even remember the band, let alone the songs 30 years later. Like, these were all like important factors for me.
What about connecting with people like you said, the bandmates? What about connecting with Saetia for the split?
Yeah. So the cool thing about our band is, we all grew up together. Now we had with the first 2 years we had, when we formed in, I guess, 93, we had a different rhythm section, drummer and bass player who ended up quitting. But I've known the 4 current other band members of Porch of Past since middle school. And the guitarist Rex I've known since kindergarten. And in spite of me moving across the country, all of us, a while back, all of us, taking separate paths in life, we've all been friends, and in a lot of cases, really good friends over that time. So it wasn't the case of, can we find a drummer off Craigslist to make this happen, or swap in members? Like, we were all kept in touch, if not weekly, at least every few months, go on mountain bike trips together, backpacking trips together, hang out whenever I'm in town. So that part was easy. Like, Like it was more just, does everyone have the space in their life to do this again?
Mm-hmm.
Does it, and really when we got in the practice space the first time, does this feel right? Like I've had a bit of imposter syndrome about this whole thing, if you couldn't tell. And like, I think it was like, does this feel right when we play together? And it, really instantly felt right. I mean, we did have to listen to the album dozens of times and remember the riffs, and I had to memorize the lyrics. But once we were playing together, it all made sense and felt really awesome. Um, so from that part, from the band social, for intrapersonal dynamics, it was easy and good from the start. And yeah, I mean, the rest of the band had all consistently played. I think our drummer Matthew kind of gave up drums about 10 years ago. But he was down as soon as he saw that we were all committed, and the festival was a great opportunity to make it happen.
Absolutely. What was the choice for the cover, the Rites of Spring cover?
I don't know. I think it was my idea. I think it was part of getting into that mind, that headspace of Portraits of Past. And um I I so I got out of this kind of music in probably 1998 or so, and the rest, Matthew continued in Funeral Diner and other bands in a similar vein, but the rest of the guys kind of moved on to different types of music that they listen to and play. And so I think it was part of like, what does this music mean? Thinking about what bands inspired us to play music back in the day. And, not that I think we sound much like Rights, but, that album was really key for me back then and still is. I think it's one of the greatest punk records ever made. And, I think interests of just trying new things also. I think when we were 19, 20, the idea of a cover song would be abhorrent to us. Like we never would do that. Like the second we started playing music, we were writing originals or thought they were original or whatever. So it was more just kind of loosening up. And here's a song that meant a lot to me and the rest of the band, and it'd be fun to play it. And I saw a lot of great bands back in the 90s, but I'm not old enough to have ever seen Rites of Spring. And, that's probably in the top three of a band that I would love to see back in the day. Um, and also from, I guess, a little more nuts and boltsy thing, it was also, if we were going to write new music, kind of what would the production sound like on future Portraits work? Like,
Mm.
and it was also, I mean, again, we never would have played a cover in a 20-minute set in a basement back in 95, but oh, wow, we're headlining a festival. Like we need to do like a 45 or an hour long set. Like not 25 minutes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um covers have their place. And I think, sorry, lastly on that topic, another thing that throwing it back to the younger folks, um, we get compliments about our music and having a legacy or whatever, but like for me, Rites of Spring, that's a legendary band, right? Minor Threat, that's a legendary band. And wanted to be sure that younger folks recognized a band that meant a lot to me, and like, here's someone you should check out.
Yeah, and a reminder to do that. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and what about getting with Solid Brass? What about doing a split idea? What was that
yeah.
sort of thoughts?
I think so. We practiced that cover and decided to play it live, and I think immediately recorded it. I guess we maybe even recorded it last spring before we even played it live, or right at the same time in April or May of 2025. And it was just kind of fun. Like, I run the Bandcamp and the Spotify and streaming and all that stuff for the band. I'm like, hey, why don't we just record this and toss it out there on streaming? We record all ourselves, or our guitarist Rex engineers and mixes and produces our stuff. So it was easy, no cost to record it. Um, and I guess I was talking to Matt from What Was Behind, and then I know Chuck from Solid Brass. His band Glaciers played with us at the Smell in 2009 when we did reunions before, and I think he said, would love to put something out by you guys. And I think it was probably my idea. I'm like, well, we've got this cover. It's already out on streaming, but it sounds pretty cool. People seem to like it when we play it. Why don't we put it on a record?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was the genesis of the idea. Our first record on Idyllition was a split 7-inch with Bleed, and split 7 inches seemed to me like such a 90s thing. Like there were so many split records back then. I don't know if there's many happen these days, but it just seemed cool. Like I've always thought the 45 12-inch and the 7-inch kind of like the pinnacle of punk music media. It's, part of due to my age, but I just think they're cute and cool and to the point. And so yeah, we figured we'd do it. I didn't personally know the Saetia guys from back in the day, but Steve the drummer had helped remix our live on WNYU session from 95, and he put that out on Bandcamp. That went on our discography back in 2008 and 9 whenever we put out the CD discography, and have friends in common. And then they asked us to do that secret show with them at the Lodge Room in LA, and they're really nice folks when we met them and spoke with them. And I knew that they had done some covers, and so I mentioned that to Solid Brass, like, hey, these guys might be interested in contributing a cover to this split. And yeah, it all worked out. Everybody said yes.
That's awesome. Adam says hello from Saetia.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Adam's been such all those guys have been so cool to us, and just it's kind of part and parcel with feeling welcomed back to the scene. It's just like so many people are friendly and giving of their time and encouragement and stuff.
I love that. Saetia. Did this spur anything to do more? Did that recording or?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get too into it, but yeah, Portraits is always about working forward in the future. And as soon as we were practicing the old songs, we had ideas for new stuff. So yeah, there's new Portrait stuff in the works.
Cool. Yeah. Was that your tease from the email?
Yeah, that's a bit of a tease. I think we're gonna play one here at the upcoming festival date in May at in Arizona for King of the Monsters Fest. I think we're gonna play a new song, and yeah, we'll see. I mean, we still like the other songs, and I think the Cypress Dust Witch EP hasn't got enough play, but yeah, I think we're gonna start working a song or two into the set. Yeah.
So, moving forward, this, you've got a lot of stuff coming up, what is it? Let's go back to like, you're kind of thinking about like, how are we going to play a 45-minute hour-long set? How do these, what did we fucking play? How did we do that? You said it was really great in the studio or practice rather, to be able to kind of get together and do that. But how was that kind of comparing a basement or a DIY venue to now actually having, a stage? And I'm not saying you didn't play on stages, but like, that just like level. It's like you're doing festivals.
We really didn't play on many stages back in the day. I mean, as far as getting the music figured out, I mean, all of us just had to listen to the record over and over again. I mean, I'm probably the top Apple Music listener of my own band, unfortunately, because just playing it hundreds of times in the car and then singing along to it solo in the practice space to figure it out. From a craft standpoint, like, how do I do this? Can my voice do this? And then really, because I didn't do a very great didn't do a great job of writing the lyrics. Can I even make it through a verse, or can I even make it through a whole song without running out of breath? And really I learned that's my style, quote unquote. And really kind of what I do on the records is I run out of breath at the end of the line. And that's kind of how why the trail off sound of my vocals is what it is because
It's
I
genetic.
well,
I'm
it's
joking with the
just that
lungs.
I'm not a musician, and I never really thought about writing a
Yeah.
song the proper way. And I come from a words background. I studied English literature in college, and I've always been a big reader. And so, the lyrics are overwritten, like there's too many syllables in the measures. And so, I mean, compared to like, say, crafting like a perfect pop song, right? So getting that, I got that figured out. The other guys tuned their guitars back down to C sharp and figured out the riffs. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work, but also cool. It's just, wow, that was interesting what we did back then. Like, I don't know why or how, but it sounds cool, and yeah, we're gonna play it.
What
So,
about looking back at, you've done some discographies, or, do you've worked on your discography in different ways? Um, Going through original artwork or going back and looking at old photos and layouts. What were the feelings? You like you said, you kind of put this in the rearview mirror for a bit.
yeah, I mean, I've had to, but also like the way my brain works, I don't think about the past a lot. Like, I think kind of both times a reunion was brought up to me, I was like, oh yeah, haven't thought about that in a while. Certainly haven't listened to my own music. I've never done that, so going back to it was cool and interesting, and like learning about yourself, I guess, in the rear view. There isn't a lot of archival stuff around it. Like, this band wasn't very big in the 90s. Like, there's a handful of photos that have been reposted to Instagram a dozen times. Like, there's like 3 photos
Mm-hmm.
and like 2 live videos or whatever, basically. Because we were around for a couple of years, and we did one tour and didn't really do much beyond that. So, and also it's all pre-digital, right? For the most part, it was recorded digitally to ADAT, but it's before cell phones and digital cameras. And um, we we were an opening band back in the day, so there's not a lot of archival stuff.
Mm.
So, which is cool. Don't have to overthink it too much. Just kind of take for me, the document of portraits is the album primarily. And because I think that was our most successful product or songs, however you want to put it. So just going back, and also the the album layout is odd.
Why?
The photo, I just, we were trying to do something different, and the front cover doesn't really say much or show much. It's just kind of a design project, right? And I resonate a lot with the back cover photograph that Sean Scotland took in Ottawa back in '95 when we played there with Shotmaker, which was a very amazing time and space and band to play with. And I love that photo. Um, but the front cover, it's like got some silver lines and weird pink color. And, I don't know what it means. Um, but the insert, is a weird timeline with the record. So I think the timeline is we toured in July-ish '95, played More Than Music Festival, played Canada. Um, then we got home and I think recorded the record soon after that in early fall, I think. Then we played our final show at Gilman Street in Berkeley on Thanksgiving in '95, and then we broke up immediately. Um, and then the record took over a year to come out. And so the insert photo, the flip side of the lyric insert on the 12-inch is a photo of us taken by a friend of the band a year after
Oh, wow.
we broke up. So we look different, right? We're 17, 18, 19, 20 in '95 into '96, and going through lots of personal changes, right? And the band the band that designed the cover, or the band that's in the photo on the back that Sean documented in July '95, we were different people when we designed the cover the next year, and we were even slightly different people when that photo was taken, I think in fall of 96. And it's, so when you're young, you shift and change or go through a lot of personas quickly, or at least I did back then. And I think I can see that like in reflecting just even the document of the album itself, like even in the space of 18 months, getting that record out, written, recorded, and then released, like we changed a lot, or I changed a lot. So yeah, it's interesting reflecting on all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great capsule.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I think it's at least a capsule of my youth. And I think, you know, people have asked us why Portrait sounds the way it does, from the production to the songwriting, who our quote unquote influences were. And I think the answer is lots of things, and it was changing. Um, like, like, we were around from 93 to 95. We were listening to completely different stuff in 93 and 95 with some commonality, like a band like Rites of Spring or Sarah Kirsch's projects. Born Against were probably through lines for me personally, but a lot of other bands at that time, we were just cycling through influences, just so stoked on music, like, especially around the Gilman Street and Bay Area scene. Like bands would come and go, bands would start, form, and break up in the space of 6 months, and so I was just sucking in those influences, getting stoked, and changing, right, and shifting. So yeah, it was interesting. I feel like at 50, I don't cycle through those influences so much. Things stick with me longer, maybe. Um, but yeah, it's been a trip going back and thinking about those things.
What I like the way you said about that is that it's always changing, and I think a lot of people will go. And I mean, I hate the word nostalgia. I don't. I think there's a.
Yes.
I think the reason I like this time period of where you're sitting in, and I'm just a couple years younger, is that it was this really great time of moments of individual scenes that would interact in slow ways, mail, phone, paper, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so that was a very fun thing, and then we were adept enough to transfer to the digital age. But what I liked about saying that in the changes part, it kind of came to me as you were saying it, was we are changing, and this thing of this was then and I'm not that now. It's not I'm looking back on it in a bad way. It's that I have moved on, and we did break up because, as you talked about, you guys were all listening to different things, and you kind of moved on your way, and those things are okay.
Yeah.
And I think as a fan, you're like, do that 12 times, right? Or don't ever go away and do that 12 times, and you can't. And I think the fan saying it is like, well, what about when you had to go to college? What about when you lost the job? Like all of
Yeah.
those kind of things that happen. It's beautiful that we're talking. It's beautiful that you're playing a show. And it's great that you're still talking to these people that you connected with. And it's almost just, I don't know, icing that there's people in the crowd while you hang out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're lucky. I mean, we're just, I mean, like I said, like the fact that anyone gives a shit, whether it's just three collector nerds on the internet or 500 people to show up to see us,
Yeah.
at a club date, it's amazing, right? And again, it's like, is it worth it? I mean, why? I mean, I have these questions, but when we play the music, it feels legit. It feels good. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like something that's worth doing. Not a flash in the pan, even though, we all probably as media consumers or fans of art, we also love flashes in the pan and those bands that only released one split 7-inch, and those two songs were amazing. But yeah, it's an odd thing. I mean, getting back to earlier part of the conversation, like I have always had a trouble with memory. I think I even talk about it in the songs in 95. Like not to sound like falsely spiritual, but I just, the way my brain works, I sort of live in the moment and I kind of move on and cycle through things and switch jobs and move across the country multiple times. And that has a lot of downsides. Like I've lost touch with folks, certainly lost touch with the hardcore scene entirely. I made a big break with that and moved on with my life. But so, I recently learned the term. So nostalgia, right, is like the love of memory or the past or the roots, the derivation or roots of love of home, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's also a psychological term, nostophobia, the fear of home or the fear of the past or the fear of one's country. And I just learned that the other day. Been thinking about that binary between nostophobia and nostalgia. And I've always had a problem with nostalgia. Just wanted to think like where I um, was fine. What I'm doing now is good and beneficial, or I'm just living my life, and this gets into themes around reunion, like why rehash that stuff I wrote when I was 19, like,
Yeah.
right? But again, I'm an overthinker. Like this stuff doesn't need to be considered so heavily all the time, and I think the proof is when we play music together, and it feels awesome and sounds great.
So you kind of let yourself go a little bit from that living in the moment, being present, and said, I'm going to let this in a little bit. I'm going to let this
Ye-
in.
Yeah, let this in, but also it is very present, right? I think the music to me, I don't know if the music sounds current, like, right? I don't really know what all music is happening right now, but when we play it specifically, it's now, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and even more from a technical standpoint, the way that I yell, what I do with vocals, I can't think about anything else. Like there's no, you know what I mean? I can't close my eyes or I'll fall down. I can't think about a single thing or I'll mess up the lyrics. Like it is pure flow when I perform, or and including when I rehearse. Like there's, I literally can't do the vocals with my eyes even open. So it's kind of a problem because I trip and fall if my eyes are closed. But I guess what I'm getting at is that it is pure flow and pure being in the moment when we play, which just at its most base just feels good, feels real, feels like this is not considering window dressing or plotting a strategic way to be a band or to perform. This is just pure action and reaction and such, which I think is kind of at the roots of hardcore. It's kind of you're just doing it. There's a lot of poses, and a lot of ideas and images around punk and hardcore and stuff. But when I'm playing it, it just is, right. I'm just doing it and it feels good.
Yeah.
So
What do you feel about your connection to the word emo or even screamo?
well, I hate both the words. I mean,
I know
you
that's
know,
why I asked it, but you're on the show,
uh,
so you
uh,
get that. No, but I did see
yeah,
it in the sort of the text and some of the stuff I've seen over the years. Like, it's this interesting, you know, we're this, and but again, people get stuck to it or connected to it, and that's a good
yeah,
and bad
and
thing. So, how do you feel about it?
I mean, it has utility. So again, like I'm a words guy. I studied literature. I read a lot. I also worked in libraries for like nearly a decade as a young person. So categories
Mm.
and terminology and like I understand there's a utility, right? Like we're playing some form of hardcore punk rock, which is rock. We're not playing jazz. We're not playing classical, right?
Yeah.
So there's utility in the industry of where you're going to file the dang record or in some category on the internet, like we're not playing whatever. We're not playing electropop, right? So, I mean, there's utility. And so I try not to take it too hard, but again, I'm an overthinker, so I do. We back in the day where we lived in the Bay Area in the early '90s, we just called it hardcore. Maybe we called it the new thing, or maybe I feel like people started using the term chaotic hardcore around
Mm.
a band like Heroin or something. We were in the ebullition, Sarah Kirsch, Discord, all the labels that and we all know, and the bands of that time. I didn't even understand. I didn't even know the word noise rock at the time, even though the band Unwound was very important to me back then. So labels, like, whatever. I mean, I think, what I was made have got at before is that emo really was a slur at that time. Like, that was, I've had this conversation with Kent McClard from Ebullition. Like, you didn't, at least in our time and place, hyper specifically, people didn't call themselves emo in a positive way. It was an insult levied against you by, some dude who liked heavier bands than you, basically, right? Or whatever. Emo was used as some, just, really an epithet. And this is within the context of, what we called mosh metal or tough guy hardcore and that other kind of stuff that was going on in the mid 90s and was out there, right? We were in the Bay Area, which was at the time popping off with Gilman Street and pop punk and those bands really taking off, a lot of which I saw and really loved back in the day, like Green Day and stuff, Operation Ivy, of course. But around the Gilman scene specifically, when a band like Heroin or Us or Shotmaker or a Sarah Kirsch project like John Henry West would play, the punks weren't there for that, and neither were the tough guy hardcore bands dudes there for that, right? It was kind of our own little secret thing, but we called it hardcore. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love the delineage because I think that's hard when people aren't there to realize. Like, I always thought post-hardcore was that other push against the tough guy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, but I don't think I knew that term back then. I don't know if we called it that. Like, I don't know.
I don't even know if I did. I just know that it was like singing over heavier riffs, and I'm not getting punched in the face.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back, also it goes back to, I think, your interview with Ian Mackay. Like, emo, like, hardcore was always emotional. Like, if it wasn't emotional, what the fuck was it about? Like, being angry is an important emotion, right? So a band like Minor Threat was emotional as fuck. I mean, I felt very emotional listening to Minor Threat when I was 14 on my skateboard, or 13, so it just seems silly, right? But it's fine. It has utility. People, younger folks proudly claim the mantle of emo, and it means something to them, and it's totally fine. So, I think at the end of the day, I don't really care what anyone calls us as long as they're listening. I mean,
I love it. The other one that I don't like is you said earlier you don't remember the term Midwest emo. Neither do I, and I want to say that when I was there's a book being written, and someone reached out to me for quotes, and it's literally a Midwest emo book. And I don't think I'm going to be in the book because I was like, where did you get this? Like, what, like his, like, it was I don't know. It was just like a very funny conversation because he was like, yeah, like, how would you describe Midwest emo? I was like, I don't even remember that term.
Yeah.
Like, you mean like twinklecore? Like, like, I don't remember that. And then I started seeing it over and over again. I'm like, now I've spent my entire waking life after 14 years old, like, into this. How have I not thought of? And then people are like, it's because it's from that area. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. There's like, so anyway, I got so confused that I think I'm not in the book, but it's just this term that came out of nowhere. And maybe that's just our time to not be, this is our.
I think it's just,
What do you think?
I mean, we can feel alienated, like people are rewriting our own history, but, like, again, it's just labels and these nerdy fine gradations between different types of music that are in some ways pretty similar to the outside listener. But I mean, in some ways it's, I don't know. I mean, I listened to some of that stuff back then. Like, A Boy's Life was a big band for me. I think it's the second record. I forgot the one with Radio Towers or whatever song. Actually, in college, I wrote a screenplay based on that song. I guess
Stop it. Where is the screenplay?
It's pre-digital, or I don't know. It's wig on. I guess it would have been a screenplay for a music video. But
Great
I mean,
idea.
I certainly hear the
Departures and
sound.
landfalls.
Yeah, departures and landfalls. Yes. I certainly hear the sound of the Midwest in that band, right?
Mm-hmm.
And um, I really love, and I know the guys, the folks in Raina Maria. I love that band. Maybe there is something to be said for the regional sounds. But yeah, I mean, I doubt that Rainer or Boys Life called themselves Midwest emo. Back then, I don't know what they would have said. I think in my tiny narrow vision of the Bay Area, I think anything that wasn't loud hardcore that I was discovering in 95 or 96, we called indie rock.
Yes.
But I mean, I guess that would encompass Boys Life and Pavement, which makes no sense, even though I love both those bands. So I don't know. I mean, something though, more on the positive side that I think we've lost since that time is there were regional sounds, right?
Yes.
There were regional record labels like Discord and Gravity and such and Kill Rock Stars. And we were lucky in the Bay, and a bunch of us lived in Santa Cruz for a while, is we would see these bands come through town. And sort of the sound of Porch the Past was inspired by the Bay Area sounds around Kirsch and Ebullition Records, and also really inspired by the Gravity sounds, and also inspired by the stuff on K and Kill Rock Stars with bands like Unwound, and and such. And this, there were sonic differences. Like, bands that lived in the Bay sounded different than bands in San Diego, sounded different than bands in Olympia, sounded different than bands in Louisville or DC, and which was really amazing. And these labels like Ebullition and all of the other ones that were kind of taking off on the riff from Discord were like about documenting a scene at a time and place, and place mattered more, right? Before the
Yeah.
internet. Like, it was like a band from Vermont or a band from Chicago, they dressed differently than a band from San Diego, and they sounded differently, and their label and their records looked different, and that was really
It
interesting
is.
and cool back then.
And you unfortunately mentioned a state that I grew up in, Vermont. It is crazy to think about, like, access that they had. Like, there
Yeah,
wasn't it's hard to think, like, it wasn't like there was a zine that I could, like, there was a one, but it's like, it wasn't like you're from a city and you've got
yeah,
weeded out the week and here are these amazing things that are transcending culture. It's like, no, one guy did it and you followed them, and
yeah,
how far they were in their book of learning how to do a zine, you
yeah,
followed that. And I think the
yeah,
same thing with the demo. And I just kind of like, I always like the ride up. I like watching a band ride up. Once it gets to a peak and then they're kind of like off through the races, I want to look back down at the mountain and bring another one back up. And I think that's what keeps me opening up my email for new bands. But you're
hmm
right, the regional part of a band coming to town from, I don't know, they came up from Santa Barbara,
yeah,
or they came up from, the valley. They're going to bring something that you hadn't heard. And I don't know, it's very, very, I think it was one of my questions that you already answered, was like, what's not mentioned about the late 90s that people miss. And I feel like people miss that part.
yeah. I mean, just
Missing, like, not missing it, but like miss talking about.
well, especially younger folks, right? I mean, if you hear music digitally primarily, maybe you buy CDs and vinyl if you've got a well-paying job, like all like not all, but most of the music that's ever been produced is available digitally now, right? And you can be a Midwest emo fan and live in Indonesia, right? Or be a chaotic screamo fan and live in the Ukraine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But back then it was, I speak, some of my friends in other bands like Jerome's Dream or the guys in Prevail or some of these other bands, like, they tell similar stories of living in the East Coast and, oh my God, a gravity band came to town. Like they
Yeah.
look and sound so much different. And that was an influence both in dress and writing and performing. But everyone had their own take, right? Like if you're trying to do chaotic screamo and you're from New Jersey, you're not going to come out exactly the same as a band from San Diego. And there was a beauty in that regional specificity that is lost now. But on the flip side, you can live wherever the hell you are in the world. Is if you have an internet connection, you can hear everything, right? And so there's more. You can just you can find out and hear anything, but
And it's
so
also,
there's a gain and a loss there. I guess is what I'm saying.
yeah, but I think it is positive because it should not be I think it should be said more is that it's a great time to
Yeah,
be from this era because
yeah,
people are looking for that little piece of, like, it's their quest. Like,
yeah,
I found this, have you guys checked this out? And then
yeah,
someone's like, no, I've never heard that. Like, oh wait. And then they can go and like find out and like, I would have I would have been all over that as a kid. If you and I were talking in 30 years, we would have talked about 2026 and all these
yeah,
reissues from the, like, we would have the same conversation. So it's not that it was better, it's that it's almost like the time is right to do it. The time is right to let people enjoy this, and they're there, and it's an excuse to see friends, but it's also a great opportunity because you do know, you have data, right? You do
yeah,
actually know. You don't just guess that we're going to go
yeah.
tour. You know, wow, St. Louis plays us a lot. We're going to fucking try and go there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just, and yeah, I think, I mean, just on my personal level, it's amazing to find out about stuff. And, I was always a nerd, especially in the 90s, just reading Heart Attack magazine cover to cover, every single record review, every single ad. Before that, it was Thrasher magazine, finding out about bands, and MRR, Maximum Rock and Roll. And like, did have a nerdy record collector phase of just being voracious for finding new music as well as books and then movies and other things too. And now that's just, a fire hose that you can drink from selectively and just find out about stuff, which is so great. I mean, I think it's really cool. Something I trip out over on Instagram is we have young fans that like their three favorite bands are like AFI, Corn, and Porch the Past. I'm just like, what the
Fuck
hell?
yeah.
I mean, my 90s brain is like, that would have never happened back in the day. Even though, I actually knew AFI guys and we went to college together and we probably played at Gilman at subsequent weekends. But like, you know, just the opportunity to hear stuff and to be into different things, like, is just so broad these days, which is great. I mean, and not to shit talk the 90s more, but part of the reason I got out of the hardcore scene back then is it did feel narrow. Like
Yeah.
there was some really cool, innovative music and some great people, but it felt very small and insular. And by the late 90s coming around, I was like, man, I'm finding out about Brian Eno. I'm finding out about Bauhaus. I'm finding out about the Velvet Underground. I like some of these songs a whole lot more than, the least selling 7-inch on so and so hardcore label, right? And just
Yeah.
this, and especially in the Bay Area, there was a particular type of politics that was performed in that was very insular. There was a lot of just policing of oneself and the scene that seemed.
Explain that more.
Well, I mean, I'm very much was one of those police. I mean, I'm vegan to this day. I was straight edge for a long time. But the Bay Area has a specific liberal leftist politics, which I 100% agree with personally. But the way it was performed within the hardcore scene was a lot of a lot of slogans, a lot of standing against things. But when
Mm-hmm.
you looked around the room the band would sing about being against racism or homophobia, but they were singing to a crowd that was 95% white straight men, right? Of which I am one of them. Um, so I was always interested in politics. I studied in college. I read theory, and I was just like, you know, we are, are we changing the world? Is putting out a zine or a 7-inch and throwing a house show, is this changing the world in any way? It's probably making our scene better and our personal lives a little bit better, but there seemed to be a lot of lip service and not much action. But again, in 2026, doing anything seems like political action. How fucked up our world is, from the top down, living under Trump, with the wars going on. It's just, I think I continue to feel frustrated about how we can make a change. Anyone can make a change for the better, but back then it felt small. It felt, and especially going to university, reading, learning about other stuff, finding out about music and artistic movements that weren't just DIY punk. The scene just felt small to me. And it seemed to me, at least, and again, this is, there's some old trope about how the most important bands to anyone is the music that they heard between 16 and 22, right? And I'm no different. But it seemed to me that by the time 98, 99 came around, like, there wasn't as much newness in the hardcore scene or the underground scene, but is probably not true. That's just how I felt at the time, and
Yeah.
I was probably just growing and cycling into other phases of life.
Right. And I think about that a lot, because I agree with you. They scream something on stage and then it's like, well, what the fuck just happens after? Like,
Yeah.
But I do, the only thing I would say is that, or not the only thing I say, this is my podcast, but it's the to your point about, it being this like one, thing that's sort of like inaction. I do feel it was a place for people that are into that, and they have, like, we talk about the chapters or moving into different parts of their life, like, did they become a politician, and their history, the singer from Indecision is like a,
Right.
a guy in Bay Ridge, right? Like, so I can see those things, or their choices and how they've approached things in life maybe have
Absolutely.
affected by it. But I agree with you. In that moment in the 90s, Madball just finished, and there's another straight edge band coming up. I don't know what's being accomplished here.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, I don't want to talk shit about my history. Like, I learned a lot
Yeah.
about politics and making things happen, and the importance of community from that DIY punk hardcore scene. And I think that's informed my life all the way through. But just, I think, and the other thing, I think, throwing it back to what you said about the reissue circus, is there was a lot of bad music in the 90s. There were a lot of, and I think, our band in particular was not very great live. Like, there was and that was also part of why Exodus, just like, I don't need to see another group of angry men learn how to play their instruments on stage. Well, that's a phase that we went through, that I saw a lot of that we were that band, literally, for most of our existence. But, part of growing older was like, man, again, uh, time becomes more important with college and jobs and relationships. Like, if I'm gonna I might only go to 2 shows this month instead of 7. Like, spend my time a little bit more wisely, see a great band rather than seeing 7 mediocre bands, per night, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's all, but it's all good. It's the learning process. And I think, as you said, around that singer in Bay Ridge, like, punk hardcore is a time for learning. And it's not just a phase. It is a phase in a lot of ways. For us, and me in particular, it was a specific, very important phase in my teens and early 20s, where I learned a lot, about myself, about the community, about music.
The outside world, right? You're in these bubbles. You're in your high school bubble. It was my escape to go, other people don't fucking drink. Other people don't have to be stupid, and I can just go to shows and fucking hang out with people, and
not get called the F slur because of how you look or talk,
exactly.
right? Like,
Yeah.
it's important. So, but I think, like a lot of us, we kind of moved on for a time. And so that's why, getting back to the nostalgia and why are we even doing this? It's, again, the context is so much different these days, for me playing these songs, as well as I think for the people who attend them. It's just nostalgia for the 90s, people who weren't there. It's so much, it's really hard to understand and communicate it, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably why I didn't think, or I wouldn't say I was ashamed, but I didn't think about it. I didn't relish those years through my 20s and 30s so much. Few highlights and bands that I still loved, and relationships that I maintained, but there was heartbreak, and there was rough times, and there was a terrible tour, and it was not all roses, right?
Yeah. And then,
So
I mean, the reissue thing, you talked about it a little bit. We've kind of touched on it. It is interesting. It's like a lot of stuff's coming out, and it's kind of like all getting the same sheen, or like the same, like,
yeah,
it just wasn't. And I think it's okay. And that's what revisionists or people that weren't there and they write about it, or it's okay. And I don't know. It just seems like, I guess I was in the music business for too long, but it's like the PR speak on these records.
yeah,
I don't know. I guess, hey, if you're your band and you're promoting yourself, this is what you're going to say anyway. It just felt like, I don't know. It just didn't seem real. Like, I'm not saying I don't want success. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Like, it just feels like it's all getting this same,
yeah,
the unearthing of X, Y, and Z. And,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, there's no, we all live under capitalism.
We do.
Capitalism
Yes.
seeks novelty. There's got to be something new. There's got to be a new TikTok trend. There's got to be
that aside,
the greatest unearthed Bob Dylan live set, or the greatest unearthed obscure screamo band from wherever. The machine always needs more fodder, right?
Okay.
So it is what it is. And again, coming from where I come in the Bay Area and the age I am, like, we were just inundated with 60s hippie bullshit around the Bay, which is just like, by age 16, I never needed to hear about Janis Joplin ever again in my life,
right.
And I feel, and again, now I feel like we're the hippie generation, and this unearthed basement tapes of screamo are being found and sold to the masses. I mean, not really the masses. Let's be real. Like, how big are these records really selling? How many streams are they really getting?
True.
But you know what I mean? It does feel like, damn, we're the old hippies now. And,
totally. That's what I wanted to get at.
It is commodified, right? And the great old days. It wasn't acid and free love in the 90s. It was something else, but it's a similar machine, similar cycle, right?
Yeah. And I was at a record store and I saw stuff that was 20 years old in classic rock.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, all right, I'm okay with this. It's still cool. I love new music. I love old music. I love the stuff that you just put in classic rock. But I think you're right. It is what it is. And it just, I guess the train coming into the station to pick up the 90s, I wasn't expecting this. I guess I wasn't expecting this type of, like, hoarding, or like, or just, and maybe I just should have assumed because it was happening when we probably weren't paying attention, and we were, like you said, the 60s stuff was being found, the 70s stuff was being found. It just was a matter of time, but it's just very, I guess it's funny when it happens to you.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's, we've seen all this. Like, every single possible psych band has been reissued, right? Every Stooges wannabe band has been put out on a limited color pressing, right? So it is what it is. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it makes us feel old, right?
Yes.
But or just makes us realize our age, and our stature, our time in life, whatever. But I mean, there's also, I think, maybe a bit of a tension there between what, quote unquote, 90s underground music meant, politics or certain values
Mm-hmm.
of which, which there's tension, and some of that's real and some of it's bullshit, like, we've had, these discussions happen in art, right? What is authentic? What is true outsider art, or someone quote unquote just doing it for the art, doing it for the music, doing it for the art, doing it for the scene. And, again, the world we live in, it needs to be a product, right? It's a streaming product, it's a physical product, it's a t-shirt, it's a blog post that gets clicks and ad sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's where, it's a world we live, unfortunately, or it is a machine. So it's odd when it happens to you. And again, it's kind of why I've been, reluctant to do this or second guessed it. Like, what does it mean to play these songs? The scene is so different. The context is so different from what it was. And like I said, the 90s context was very heavy. It was serious, at least where I lived. It was serious. It was supposed to mean something. It was supposed to be the most authentic of selfless endeavors. um, whether that's true or not, we could discuss, but, it does, I think, add for me a particular valence or nuance to, like, oh man, people want to buy the seventh reissue of our dang record or whatever the hell it
Yeah.
is. Like, you had this conversation with Kent. It's just like, when we were going to do that, when we were going to do the reunion in early last year, it was like, oh, I didn't love the discography that we did on CD in '09. I don't love CDs. Like, maybe this band needs like a more proper, like, fancy deluxe vinyl, proper discography. Because it was like the CD kind of doesn't look great. The sequencing's weird. Some of the mastering's not perfect. Like, but at the flip side, I was like, how many times are we going to sell the same song to people? And, I have close friends who are like, I have 6 versions of your LP. And I'm like, that's insane. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, it's just, this sense of moving forward, sense of authenticity. Do I need to, do we, does there need to be another Bob Dylan or Portraits of the Past reissue series every decade or every 15 years? Like, maybe not. But for us, again, getting in the room, we were immediately like, oh, we're going to play these songs. They feel great. But, we're going to also start working on some new stuff. So,
Yeah.
no deluxe triple gatefold box set anytime soon.
So, what are you doing now?
Me
In
personally, for
in
the
yeah,
band.
no, for you personally in real life.
Well, I'm between things. My background is in business and marketing, and I'm over it, have been over it for a while. So I'm kind of been an unemployed semi musician for a little bit the past
Nice.
time. I'm also a big mountain biker, and I've spent the last 6 years doing a lot of volunteer mountain bike advocacy and trail work in our local mountains, like something that I get a lot of inspiration from. I grew up in a beautiful place in the coast and in the hills of the Bay Area, and the outdoors were super important for me. So something that a lot of people who live in LA don't understand is that we're surrounded by beautiful mountains and trails, and spend a lot of time up in the woods, up in the desert, riding my bike and digging trail. Not quite so much the last 6 months or a year. I broke in a lot of bones riding bikes, and I have a rule that I don't ride mountain bikes for 2 months before Porch the Past has to do something, because I literally would be unable to yell my head off on stage if I had broken ribs or a broken ankle. So, but yeah, I spent a lot of time doing trail work and mountain bike advocacy, which is sort of the policy and politics around public land use
Mm-hmm.
and trails and bikes. And, again, under this administration, there's been a massive defunding of our public lands, of national forests. And also, since you're local, we've had major wildfires impact the LA region, that also affect our trails and the the budgetary needs of our public lands, like the Eden fire that burned up Altadena, also impacted a lot of our trails. So that's a major passion of mine. Might become a career. I don't know, but yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking and working on trails and bikes and public lands and parks and all that kind of stuff too. And then that and music and my partner Justine and our cat Freya and Los Feliz here. And,
Hell yeah.
I think on a personal level, like I said, I kind of compartmentalize life or go through phases, and part of getting back to the band has also been getting back into literature and film and reading poetry, rereading all the Murakami novels and other stuff, and just getting into that creative headspace. And also, I think both the music as well as how I engage with art and literature has been a bit of a coping mechanism, to use a hashtag, for, again, what's going on in the world. Just spent 10 years obsessing about politics and Trump and reading Twitter and reading Blue Sky and going to protests and wondering why, after 40 years of seeing America and our society get better and more inclusive, feeling like it's all of a sudden going the other direction. And we've got the Gestapo literally kidnapping our neighbors here in LA every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at maybe a year or so ago, I was like, I have to stop thinking about this a little bit. I've got to delete these apps. Me knowing about every horrible thing that's happening in East LA or in Gaza or in DC is not helping me change any of it. And so there's been a little bit of insularity and just getting back to like, I need to rewatch some Bergman films. I need to read some great literature and kind of focus on myself and the positive stuff within human culture, in spite of all this terrible shit going on in our country and our world right now. So it's been a heavy time, but again, the music has been an amazing outlet for those passions and that frustration and just that living in the moment and feeling loved, feeling part of a community, feeling like I and we can go on, exist in spite of what's happening, environmentally and politically. So I don't know. It's been a rough few years for me personally, but but again, the music I think has really germinated a lot of positive stuff too, at least in my own brain. So it's something.
I love that, Rob. That was perfect.
Cool.
Rob, you're great. You remember a lot.
Oh, good. Yeah, I studied up, trying to remember, but hopefully not spending too much time in nostalgia and reverie, because 2026 is what matters, and getting to 2028, surviving as a human race is what matters.
Seriously.
What sick bands I'm going to go see in the next couple weeks, that shit matters, right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, excited. Like, so we were planning to. We've taken a 6-month hiatus. It was planned that we were going to be a little slower this year, but now it looks like we're doing at least 4 shows. So yeah, King of the Monsters in May in Arizona. We're doing New Friends in Toronto. Very excited about that at the beginning of August. And then 2 dates with Saddest Landscape and Drought in Back to Great American Music Hall and Zebulon in LA. Excited to play with those bands. We played with Drought at Your Renaissance, and Viggy's a good guy, a good friend. Love seeing that band. And then the Saddest Landscape was new to me. But yeah, excited to see them live. They've got a new record. Just randomly, apparently, a friend of mine in Canada is like, "Oh, this band's the Saddest Landscape. They mention your song in their song," and I'm like, "Oh." That's all. That was how they were introduced to me, as a band that
referenced that's cool.
One of our lyrics or songs in one of their previous records. So yeah, I know they've been around a long time, and they do a good job. Yeah, so excited to share the stage with them.
That's cool. Okay, awesome.
Cool, man.
We have a great rest of your day. What do you have planned?
I think we have chores. I'm not sure. Doing a little house chores. Hopefully get out for a walk on this nice gray day. But yeah, I've been homebound all day, so I need to stretch my legs at least.
Stretch away. Stop talking about hardcore for a minute.
Yeah.
And enjoy the rest of your day. And yeah, thank you so much and best of luck.